Welcome back to the Justin Prince Show. Man, I am excited today to introduce you to actually a partner of mine, a mentor of mine, and someone that is one of the real rare, real unique people you'll meet in your life. His name's Truman Hunt. And I've known Truman even as a kid. He was actually in my neighborhood. I didn't know him well, but I knew of him. I knew of his reputation. And in the direct selling space, he's one of the true statesmen. He was the CEO for a publicly traded company for 14 plus years, took him from 700 million to 3.2 billion. He was the chairman of both the DSA, the Direct Selling Association, as well as the WFDSA. So both looking over the United States direct selling sales channel as well as the global sales channel. And he is just one of the smartest, wisest, kindest, and more interesting people you'll ever meet. So I'm excited to be able to have this conversation because one of the questions I want to see if we can answer is direct selling dead? Is this business model dead? Is this a model of the past, or is there still, a bright future for the direct sales model? So I'm excited to introduce you guys to Truman Hunt. I am so fired up to do this. I'm excited for people that don't know you to get a chance to get to know you. And you've had a huge impact in my life, not only over the last couple of years, but the work that you did. It's interesting, just the work that you did in your career and some of the sales leaders that you helped to develop in your company. There were some of the reasons I did direct sales, and there were some of the reasons I stayed in direct sales. So even indirectly, you had a huge impact. So I'm really fired up about this. And I want to talk about just the state of network marketing or the state of direct sales, like our industry, state of the union, what's going on. We're seeing a lot of commotion, a lot of challenge, a lot of change. My prior company that I was with for, 11 plus years, a week or two ago at the time of this recording, literally like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon was just bam. It was just done, So I think there's caused a lot of, consternation for people and some stress and some fear. I just had a friend of mine in my neighborhood over at my home, and she was kind of like, man, everything sounds great. I just have this network marketing, kind of hang up, kind of be proud of this profession. And so I just want to have kind of an open, candid, dialogue, because these are some discussions that we've had, as I was even debating if I wanted to get back into the direct sales world. So if you're listening to this and you're in direct sales, this will be extremely helpful. If you're not in direct sales, I still think it'll be very helpful. Just understanding our space and, understanding the power of what we do. So, man, super honored to do it with you. Thanks for taking some time.
Hey, thanks for the invitation.
So one of the things I admire about you is you are a student. You're a student of history, when it comes to world history, U.S. history, but you're really a student of our space. You've been in the sales channel for 3 decades or whatever it's been now. Uh, Walk
Since
us
the,
through.
since the 1900s.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Walk us through, your perspective on direct selling. I know you have some just interesting
Yeah,
historical context on it all.
yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say that I was probably as reluctant a participant as anyone could be in direct selling. I got involved with Nu Skin in 1996, but had known the Nu Skin principles for quite a long time, and had resisted invitations to get involved with them, and finally did because I was a securities lawyer, and they were thinking about the possibility of going public, which they did, and that's what I did. I knew I could do that, and I really thought I'd just get that done and move on to another project. But what I found in the process of taking them public is a business model that I just really learned to appreciate and value. It's just there's just something magical about an association of like-minded people who are entrepreneurial and optimistic and out to change the world. And I fell into that family of like-minded people and just really found myself enjoying it and really appreciating the value and the beauty of the business model. So I became a proponent of it and still believe for many reasons that it is a remarkably powerful business model. And yet, Justin, as you just pointed out, since the COVID pop, where direct selling companies pretty much all did well. I mean, many of them sell health and wellness products, and during COVID, everyone was buying those, and many people were looking for other ways to generate income as well. So 2020, 2021, big years. But since then, kind of in decline, right? A little bit as a channel. And so, should we ask ourselves the question, why? Why has the channel struggled a little bit, and why do we believe that it can recover and have a future? I mean, is that where you want to go with
Yeah,
this?
yeah. I do want to get into that. Before we dive deep into that, though, start with maybe some of those innovations that have hit the channel. Because I do think there's probably unique moments right now. It's like the Chinese symbol for crisis means danger and means opportunity. It's like, part of setting up the potential of the channel is that maybe there is need or the ability for it to change. But I know you've talked about, I think it was Avon, 100 some years ago, whatever it was, and then the Amway models. Like, is there any historical context that you pull as you've watched the model change over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. If you look at the evolution of the channel since 1890, when Avon started to do business, kind of the original door-to-door sales model, right? Of literally take the products to your neighbors and drop off a catalog and sell them stuff. I mean, it was that simple for a long time. And then along comes some innovation, with Tupperware, home-based parties, and Mary Kay, more of a focused, cosmetic focused, beauty focused, more focused from a product perspective than Avon had been perhaps. And then along comes Amway, because the problem with Mary Kay was that totally female, and you didn't really own your own business. When you turned 65, even, you had to retire as a Mary Kay salesperson, and you didn't really own your own business. And so along come, DeVos and Van Andel, and their innovation was own your own business, the American way. And so Amway is born, and enjoys a tremendous amount of success for decades. And then along come other, what I would describe as perhaps more high octane, higher commission levels of payout, and the opportunity for international expansion. And that's really part of what fueled NewScan, was the fact that you could be paid in your home market for sales that your organization generated globally. And that really fueled significant international expansion for companies like NewScan and Herbalife. And I think we're at a crossroads right now. We're at a moment in time where the channel is struggling a little bit, and I think we need to identify why and what we can do to address it. Because ultimately, Justin, let me ask you this question, because you've been in the channel a long time too. I mean, for me, the question begins, the assessment begins with this question: do we believe that there is less need for business opportunity in the marketplace today than there was 10 years ago or 20 years ago?
Yeah, yeah.
Has Do we
I
need
think that.
less opportunity? I mean, I don't think so. What do you
Yeah.
think?
No, I agree, 100%. I think there's more ways to get access to opportunity. There's more gigs and easier way to get access to selling things online, that kind of stuff. But the need for folks to generate additional income or to change their economic situation, I think, is just as significant, if not more significant, than it was 10 years ago.
I agree with that. And so let's ask ourselves then the question: what are the impediments to growth in this channel? Why is the channel struggling a little bit? And I don't know. My view is that our channel, the direct selling channel, the legacy model, the historical way of doing business is archaic. It's old school. In the digital era, the internet age, the social media age, the historical legacy models need to change, and it's hard. Change is hard in the direct selling channel. It erodes confidence. As soon as the direct selling company starts to change the way they're doing business, people say, "Oh my gosh, something's not working here. Something's obviously wrong. Something must not be working." And it's really, really tough for the legacy companies to evolve. It erodes confidence, and to some degree, I would kind of liken it to an effort to change a jet engine in mid-flight. You can't take a billion-dollar business or a multi-billion-dollar business and change the engine in mid-flight, and that's kind of what the legacy companies are trying to do. They're trying to modernize, and it's not easy to do when you're in mid-flight.
When you say modernize, I could almost hear someone having kind of a visceral negative response to what you're saying and thinking to themselves that you're basically saying go affiliate because you're seeing this trend with some of these larger companies where they're like basically getting rid of the back end or the team building or the override portion of the business and doing just all affiliate. And I don't think that's what you're saying. I think there's some
No.
when you say modernize the business, what do you feel like you're saying there?
Well, I think what goes into perhaps the current tarnished image of legacy network marketing are things like exaggerated earnings claims, just kind of an ick factor associated with people making outrageous earning claims, exaggerated product claims, overpriced products, lingo, language, compensation systems that are virtually impossible to understand, let alone explain to someone else. You know, Legacy fashions of doing business and direct selling that are just old, outdated, and not speaking to today's market.
Do you look at the rise or how do you look at the rise of affiliate marketing playing into the rise or how can it play in the rise of direct sales? So for example, affiliate companies pay out, and I'm talking a true affiliate company here. So like a just a direct to consumer online ads, affiliate type company. Uh, they're paying out, maybe 20% or maybe 30% of sales, give or take, to their marketing expense, where a direct sales company would be a little bit higher. And, you know, talk about pricing, how, it's hard for direct sales to have pricing that's competitive. It's hard for them to stay innovative, and still stay within a pricing structure that customer, can, can swallow. Like walk us through how you're processing how these companies can change, need to change to stay competitive in this, this new environment.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of legacy direct selling companies are trying to do is to some degree morph into a more bona fide affiliate model, right? Pushing money to the front end, what we would call the front end, the product reseller end of the equation. And and that's just, I mean, it's understandable. It's also what we're doing at Make, isn't it? I mean, we are creating a bona fide compelling front end opportunity for people who are really more interested in just being affiliate marketers than they are perhaps building a group. But to me, the innovation, the breakthrough in business model is in the intersection of these models. Affiliate marketing isn't perfect either,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, too often affiliate marketers get paid once. They don't own the customer. A lot of times their commission levels are quite low. And so it's not perfect. That model is not perfect. What we're trying to do is take the best of both worlds and offer an opportunity to someone to be an affiliate marketer if they want to be, to offer the opportunity for someone to build a group if they want to do that, or if they want to do both. Our platform enables people to do both, I think, in a modern, normal, and natural way.
We've seen multiple companies struggle that were, and one of the things that they had in common was basically private equity or some sort of equity group was attached to the company,
Yeah.
and from like an ownership, level. And, you know, I think it's led some folks to say, is MLM dead? Basically, is this profession over? Because you've seen some of these companies either closing their doors or getting rid of it. But talk about from your perspective. First of all, I think it's interesting to like what is the business model of private equity and why that sometimes doesn't quite jive with the business model of direct sales, and why you think that they're one of the common denominators, not for everybody, but one of the common denominators has been, private equity ownership. Uh, Talk about private equity and network marketing. Like, how do you process those two together?
Well, private equity has been interested in the direct selling channel to some degree because the economics of the channel when a business is working well are attractive, right? I mean, our business model tends to be relatively low from a capex perspective. It doesn't require hundreds of millions of dollars.
Just for the layperson, explain what CapEx is.
Well, just investment required
Like
to
capital expense, basically.
capital expense to build and to fuel a business. And so the cash flow dynamics of the model are positive, and that's what attracts private equity. They look at the business model and say, wow, we could buy this business for X, enjoy a really great revenue stream coming out of it, or even more typically, lever that company up with debt to improve their return on equity invested. And that's where you get in trouble. I mean,
So just again, just for the layperson that's maybe new to some of these business terms, when you say lever a company up, just kind of walk through what that means and what's happening when that happens to a company.
it's funding the acquisition of a company with debt. And so you might put in 20% of a purchase price with equity, just cash that you're investing, and 80% of the purchase price for that business is debt, borrowed from a lender, a bank or an investment bank of some point, of some degree. And that's where private equity gets in trouble. I mean, what they typically do, they go into a company, they reduce overhead to improve cash flow. They don't, for private equity firms, they do not understand the importance of culture in a direct selling business and how important it is for people to be able to look owners in the eye and say, can I trust my family to this group of people? And, for private equity, it's just about numbers, more than it is about people. It's literally profit over people. And that formula does not work on a direct selling platform. I can think of maybe one example of a private equity purchased direct selling company that went on to be a success, and lots of examples of it just leading to a company's demise because of the debt load and because of just the loss of the people factor in a direct selling business, which is so incredibly important. So for me, Justin Prince, when we decided to do business together, for me, a commitment from you to not fall to the temptation of taking that check from a private equity firm down the road was really important because I just don't believe it's ever in the best interest of the field or the company or an organization to succumb to that temptation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like and I want you to talk about this because you've actually lived this. This isn't just theory. There's really two potential, let's call it exit, cash exit options for an ownership team. One would be a public offering. I want you to talk about that because you've actually taken a company public and run a public company. You ran as a public CEO, which this is no small feat. My goodness, to take it from 700 million to 3.2 billion as a public CEO, that every quarter your neck's on the line. That's very few folks in the country can say something like that. But that, or this levering up the debt and taking out a big payment, and then hoping the company can pay back the payments, and if there's ever any softening of sales, the company, all of a sudden, these big companies can be in kind of a precarious financial situation. But talk about public, like why you feel like going public. Well, I don't want to be putting any words in your mouth. Is going public a good option? Is that a viable good option today for a
Yeah,
direct sell
I
company?
mean, I mean, to me, look, I helped run a publicly traded company for 21 years, and so I had to talk myself into believing that it was the right thing to do on a daily basis. And I don't think that it's quite as punitive to the future of a business as being owned by a private equity firm is, because on the positive side of the equation, being public forces a company to stay aggressive. Public companies have to find ways to grow. And that's not a bad motivation, right? For a management team to have that pressure to consist, because that really benefits the sales force, is staying sharp, finding ways to continually innovate and renew the vibrancy of your business opportunity is a good thing. But on the other hand, being public does subject you to short-term thinking. You start to think more about the next quarter or the quarter after that or the next year than you really are thinking 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road. And from a financial perspective, the other thing that it does is it subjects you to the whims and the wishes of Wall Street. So in our case, instead of taking the profit generated by the business and reinvesting it in business growth, what you end up doing is paying out a lot of money in dividends. Okay, you're paying your shareholders for retaining that interest in your company, and you're also under a lot of pressure to maximize the financial metrics of the way your balance sheet looks by repurchasing your stock. So we would spend tens and even hundreds of millions of dollars repurchasing our stock in the open marketplace instead of investing that in business growth.
Hmm.
And is that the right thing to do? I don't think so. I don't think so. In fact, if I could back up 20 years and put back into my corporate coffers every dollar that we spent repurchasing our stock, we would have literally $2 billion in the bank today and have a market cap that's 10 times or at least 10 times higher than what Nu Skin's market cap is today. So that's the downside of being public. So there are pros and cons. I don't think it's as bad as being owned by a private equity firm, but it's probably one step, just one
Yeah.
step down the ladder.
Yeah, and just to close that loop, when we had that conversation of, hey, if we're going to go do this and go build a business, I don't want to sell out the field, all these hardworking folks to go out there and help you build a business. I don't know if you remember my response, but I've been one of those hardworking folks that, had
Yeah.
it ripped out from under me, actually on multiple occasions. And I was like, listen, I wouldn't be doing this if I couldn't go protect those people and those families. Like, I have no interest in taking it public or in the kind of the private equity, exit, because I've been those people out there, banking your family's future on, hoping that your owners will be wise and good stewards and ultimately care about the field. You know, my very first experience in direct sales, the ownership team went retail. They got rid of the sales force. And, I built 3 large networks, and all 3 of the large networks, were ultimately, well, I sold the second one, but that company eventually, had some issues and went out of business. And, my last business that I was there for, 11 of the best years of my life is no longer, which is just, it's a sad reality. So we wanted to build something that where we could protect these families. And by the way, I think one thing that's interesting with you is we're in different age ranges, different age brackets. So a lot of the benefit that you will pull from our business uh, growth and success is really is really reward that your estate would get in a way, which I think is says a lot about you, that you weren't building it for it's kind of a quick smash and grab. You're building it for more of like literally a legacy play, because I think less of it will be necessarily dollars you'll spend. And one thing I also think is interesting with you and I both, you I think more than me, but there's an old adage that says like money changes people. And so the first time someone earns $1, how does it change them? And again, your career's been going a little longer than mine, but we both earned $1 or 2 along the way. And so you start to figure out who they're going to be when they have $1. And I feel pretty confident that another dollar doesn't necessarily change us, because it doesn't necessarily change your situation that much more. Um, Walk us through from your perspective. I'm interested to hear, like my neighbor that was saying, can I do direct sales? Like there's kind of a squeamishness to it. When you hear someone say that, because I think at this point, I remember early in my career, someone said, "Is it a pyramid scheme?" And I remember being on a conference call once. I didn't even know what a pyramid scheme was, but I knew this wasn't it, because I think those were illegal. I just didn't even know how to process the whole thing, other than I'm pretty sure this isn't it. And I get that stuff less now because I have more confidence, right? My confidence level is so high, and people just you're kind of a legitimate person. In your case, no one's thinking that you're doing goofy stuff. So how do you help someone process that stuff of just that, why direct sales? Like, you talked about, for example, just this incredible model to bring ideas to the marketplace. And just I just would love to hear your perspective on some of those questions and concerns, and why this model versus others. Why not do a direct to consumer model where you just run Instagram or Facebook ads? Like, why this sales channel?
Yeah. Well, look, I wish that we could have little men in black flashlights, that we could flash in front of people's eyes and have them erase all of the bad impressions that they might have about about direct selling or network marketing. It's a real thing, and I mean, I suffered from it myself, and still am skeptical of new companies that pop up out there. But when I think of the reality of starting a new business, I mean, look, we just went through this, you and me together, over the course of the last, starting a business is a heavy lift. I mean, it is work, and it takes usually, often, millions of dollars, and most of the time, for entrepreneurs, that means mortgaging your house, levering yourself up in order to start whatever business it is that you feel compelled to start. And one of the beauties of our platform is that it's still the lowest cost, lowest risk way to be in business for yourself. I mean, it's less expensive to start a direct selling business than it is to drive Uber. When you drive Uber, you have to have a car, and you don't even have to do that, to start a direct selling business. So I think it's still
You're
the
saying you're
lowest
saying on the field side, kind of
on
on
the
the,
field side.
yeah,
Yeah,
on the affiliate side.
right. Yeah, what other business can you literally start with almost zero investment? I mean, they're not out there. And so to me it's still the lowest risk, lowest cost approach to starting a business for yourself that has significant upside. I love that about the model, because I think starting a business, even in the United States of America, where we are, the capital of small business, it's tough. It's a really tough road to hoe. And the other thing that I love about it is, as we've talked about it really for the last year, Justin, is that when you're trying to bring something to the marketplace that is truly innovative, I just don't know of a better way to do it than to literally be able to sit belly to belly, with a consumer and say, this is what peptide sciences is all about. And I think that we're onto a product category here and a product innovation here that is really, really significant. And you just can't run enough television ads to explain it. You can't run enough print ads to explain it. You have to have the ability to answer questions, and to and we do that.
Yeah.
When we first sat with one of our scientific partners and pointed out to them that they had, just this incredibly compelling science story to tell, and yet they were getting 8, 10, 12 views on their YouTube clips. They said, oh, that's $100 million problem. And we said, no, no, that's a multi-billion-dollar problem. And we're going to pay people billions of dollars to tell that story, to tell your story. And that's what our channel can do. And I just don't know of another channel that has that power.
Yeah. How much? I'm curious. I feel like creating economic opportunity for me is just significant from like for my life's work. It's like if I was making widgets and selling them into Walmart and made a fortune doing it, I'd feel like I had a hole in my heart just because I want to help people create economic opportunity. Over these, 30 something years, do you feel like that's been a driver for you, just helping people change their economic situation?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, to work with a 24-year-old, recent college graduate whose life is essentially, I mean, chained to a desk at a cubicle, making a modest wage for a long period of time, and enabling them to engage in a business that can literally transform their lives is really, really fun. And, it's not to say that it's an easy road, but I love that aspect of what we do. And it's interesting to me, Justin, that with your own kids, I mean, let's get really personal about this. You have a son who's 21, now 20, 21,
Yeah, 21.
21, a daughter who's graduated from high school, and you're coaching them to take what many would see as a little bit of an untraditional path. You
Hmm.
know, a lot of kids graduating from high school are looking at themselves as new in the marketplace would make a beeline to the nearest university, right? You're coaching them down a little bit of a different path, and I think that the reason, I don't know, what is the reason why you're doing that?
Well, look, let's start with this. I'm a little biased. I didn't go to college, so I'm a little biased. But I look at our educational system. Now, the way I look at it is there's there's multiple ways to become educated or to build value in the marketplace, and which is really the goal. Is the goal is to build a knowledge base or a skill set base that the marketplace will pay you, reward you to bring that value into the marketplace. And I just feel like there's just other ways to do it. And I see some of these kids, they'll go to school kind of because that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm not against college specifically as much as I am about just having a plan, and like don't just do it just because you're like hoping to figure it out and go. They'll leave college, they'll be in debt, they'll have college loans and so on that they've taken out with really kind of an aimless thing. If your goal is to be a doctor, attorney, like things that you need to have a degree for, you need to go get your degree and get that education. I just feel like there's other ways to get it. There's other ways, whether it's in real life mentorship, in entrepreneurship, whether it's online courses, through books. There's other ways to educate yourself and build a knowledge base and a skill set base. And so with my kids, I want them to build that education base. But like I feel like with my son, he did a 2-year mission, which if he wouldn't have done that, I would have loved if he had maybe some military service. But it's a service mission, so you're serving a military. You'd be like serving the country in a mission. He's serving his church. He's serving people. So I think it helps you to be a little bit more selfless. And he built a knowledge base working with people, a skill set. And then like with my little girl, she has this real gift with people, but I also need her to she's going to need to continue to hone that in to a real skill set. So that's kind of how I look at it. I think we all need to get educated. I'm a huge proponent of education. I'm a huge proponent of continual education and getting better and improving and never saying I'm there. But I just think the 4 walls of a university are not the only way to get there.
Mhm.
But if you're not going to educate yourself through other ways, man, you probably should go to a university. But if you're going to go, if you're disciplined enough to continue to learn and get really curious and build your skill sets and build your knowledge base, then again, I don't think university, unless you're going to be a doctor, attorney, like stuff that needs that, like a CPA needs that specific knowledge and skill set base that you get in the 4 walls of a university.
Yeah. So, I mean, the society in which we live kind of tends to have norms, doesn't it? And to some extent, what we do on our direct selling platform might be a little bit out of norm. Some people might see it as just an untraditional approach to building a business, but I think it's a beautiful approach to building a business because it's low cost, it's low risk, and yes, you're going to run into people who might have a negative attitude about it. But look, if you're doing things the right way, if we can help people as we're trying desperately to do to get rid of all of the MLM ick, I think it's a beautiful business platform.
Yeah.
And part of what fires me up, honestly, Justin, is the opportunity to do this with you, someone who has been as successful in this channel as anyone in the course of the last 15 years, and do it right. The opportunity to build it right and to build it on a platform that's really built to last is an opportunity that I couldn't resist. I mean, I'm just really excited about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, and I want to ask you why you got back in, but let me ask you this. So online has changed the game in our space.
Yeah.
Like in my prior business, we were one of the very first companies, and in this case, one of the very first teams to go fully online. I remember sitting in meetings saying, should we do more kind of like home parties, and we called them socials. Like we're trying to maybe said, let's just change the name. And then ultimately I thought to myself, I'm like, doggone it, we drag your neighbor over to your house, for a 7 o'clock presentation. The one that actually shows up on time, is there sitting on your couch waiting for everyone else to show up as you wait at your front door. And guess where their eyeballs are? their eyeballs are on their phone. And guess what you're trying to do? You're trying to get their eyeballs on a presentation or on some information or on some product so they can become aware and educated on it. And I just thought, why don't we just take the information to where their eyeballs already are, which is their phone. So we built our whole business on social. Back then, specifically on Facebook, and did billions of dollars in that. And a lot of the profession started kind of following, some of the systems and models that we built. The downside of social, that's the upside. That's the positive side. You create speed and velocity, and gosh, you could sit at your house and still learn how to make money, and you could have a remote, in essence, legit remote work. There's no geographic restrictions. The downside is, there's haters online. There's like, you go to like a Reddit forum and everybody's anonymous and they can say whatever the heck they want. And you lose a little bit of that human, there's only certain things you would say to a human in a human's face, right? Just eye to eye, man to man, human to human, woman to woman. You just wouldn't say certain things. There would be a manners decorum. You wouldn't, there's physical risk if you said certain things to a human. Like there's just things we wouldn't do human to human, but online behind an anonymous name, you can say whatever you want.
You know,
How do you feel like the haters have hurt the channel? And is there a way, how do you deal with haters? Is there a way uh, to not have that hurt your business? In other words, how do you overcome it?
yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I think that that you're right about how challenging it's been for many direct selling companies to exist and thrive in a digital environment. And if you predated, if those companies kind of predated the rise of the internet and social media, it's hard to infuse digital DNA into your business when you weren't born with it. And so I think, having now been born in a digital DNA currently, that's a benefit to our platform. I mean, the haters, I guess, having done this for as many years as I have, I mean, and taken as many arrows as I have, I don't know, I just ignore it. I think we live in an era where people recognize that anyone can say anything and anyone can take any cheap shot. And I think to some degree, the fact that it's so prevalent in the marketplace helps people realize that there's just always going to be haters. I mean, anyone who is generating any measure of success is going to take arrows.
Yes, that is for
And
sure.
I don't know. I just ignore it. I mean, I don't read it. I don't pay attention to it. And I'm not going to let it ruin my day.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It is, you know, um, as I've traveled through Asia, they say there's an old proverb that says, "The nail that sticks up shall be hammered down." And I traveled through the UK and through Australia. They say that there's what they call the tall poppy syndrome. So imagine the little poppy flower grows up, will be sliced down, and then in the U.S., particularly back east, if there's crabs in a bucket, when the one crab tries to crawl out of the bucket, what does the other crab do? Does it hoist it up on its shoulders and give it a push out? No. What the second crab does is it pulls it down. And it's just this part of humanity. It's a really interesting part of humans. People like you and I are not wired this way, but there are some humans that if they see someone try and stick up as a nail or grow up as a poppy or crawl out of the bucket, they will hammer, slice, and pull them down. And what's interesting is the bigger you get and the more successful you get, the more people you serve, and the more impact you make, you just get more, just bigger hammers. So it's the weirdest thing, but it is how some humans are for sure.
Mhm.
You know, uh, why get back in the game for you? At this point, you've had an incredible career. One of the true statesmen and kind of decorated executives of in our space. You have kind of done it all, seen it all. Been literally all over the world, and and you love golf. And so
Yeah.
why for you, why get back in the game? How business isn't always easy, and there's problem solving that you have to do, and it's a little bit of a, business is a little bit of a fight. You're in there just making it happen in the front lines. Why did you get back in the game?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, you can only golf so much before it starts to hurt, and even golf hurts when you get to be my age. But I mean, for me, I feel like I have something to contribute to the creation of the future. And I believe in the channel. I believe in the power of the platform. And I believe in the power of people. I mean, you don't want to hear this, Justin, because you don't want it to ever be about you. But, the opportunity to work with you is an opportunity that I couldn't pass up because I think we can do something really special here. And I just think we're on the verge of creating the next big platform in the direct selling space, and doing it in a truly innovative way that really bridges the affiliate marketing world and the direct selling world in a fashion that is a multi-billion dollar platform. And I'm excited about the prospect of doing that, and doing it right, and really building the future. And
Yeah.
that's really what's fired me up about being involved
Yeah.
with this.
Well, look, I want to do many more of these. And by the way, if you guys want more Truman, make sure you let us know in the comments, and those you're watching, but whether it's on YouTube or you're listening to it and so on, make sure you hit me up. But Truman is one of those people. They say things like you never want to meet your mentor, you never want to meet your heroes because you meet them and then in real life you're like, oh dang, they're not as cool as I thought. Truman's one of those people that he's actually better behind the scenes, actually better in person than the person you would hear about or meet. And he's smarter and he's funnier, and he's more down to earth, and he's wiser than you would even kind of hope he would be. So Truman, I just am super honored to be able to go forge the future. I feel like maybe you could comment on this before we kind of wrap. You just talked about how we need a resurgence of leadership in the space. Like one of the things that we could do to kind of take to really take the sales channel to a different level is to really step up as leaders. And that every time I have heard you say it, man, it freaking fires me up. Like makes me like boils my blood to go make an impact in the world, but ultimately in our sales channel and create economic opportunity. But share with us your perspective on that and how important you think it is, both leadership and then also forging the future.
Yeah, I mean, I just in our business, Justin, there's lots of ingredients, that go into the recipe for success, but leadership is ingredient numero uno. I mean, nothing is more important than that. And again, that speaks to why I was so interested in doing business with you, because of the fact that you are that. You're a unicorn leader. And everywhere in my experience where we enjoyed unicorn leaders, we won. And where we didn't have real leaders, we didn't win. And so, yeah, let's be the world's largest association of real leaders, because if we are, we're going to make a big difference in the world, and truly forge the future. I mean, part of the problem, part of the reason our channel is struggling is that so many companies are truly trying to preserve the past. And as we talk about in one of our models, is we're working to forge the future. And that starts with real leaders. And so for those who fall into that category, you're in the right place, because something special is brewing here, and it's largely due to the quality of leadership that we enjoy in the company, both at the corporate level and at the field level. And to have a leader like Justin, who actually comes from the field, is unique in our space, and is something that really shouldn't be ignored by people who are considering business opportunities in direct selling, because to have someone in control who has a field perspective is extremely rare in this space.
Yeah, I think as you're listening to this, I think the future of direct sales. First of all, I think there's a bright future, my friends. Best days ahead. The challenge is that the crisis does create danger, but it also creates huge opportunity. It creates like the moment. It's like Martin Luther King said, "The stars shine brightest in the darkest nights." It's like the dark nights create contrast, and contrast is an important thing. So when everything's dark and down, and you stand out, you shine bright, you stand out. Now remember, if all the stars shine bright and you shine bright, then you'll blend in. But if none of the stars shine bright and you shine bright, then you'll stand out. And so there's just like this moment. It's one of the reasons I wanted to get back into the direct sales world. I feel like there's just a moment to really stand out and to really shine bright in a dark time and to really lead with a lot of vision. So I do think there's best days ahead. But I think that the business model does matter. I think the ownership team does matter. I think that, and I mean matter like it matters immensely, it's so important. And, I've built my business, huge businesses on a kind of a faulty ownership foundation, and it matters, it's just so significant. And so I do think finding that right situation does matter as well. And there will be a kind of a pruning season, it feels like a little bit in our space right now. It's a little bit of a pruning season. Companies that either didn't maybe monitor and run the business well, are maybe being pruned a little bit right now. Uh, Companies that didn't innovate, didn't invest in innovation, didn't know how to innovate. There's a pruning process, but in that same time, that also creates this significant opportunity to say, let's do it right, let's do it differently, let's do it with more wisdom and forethought. So, Truman, let's do this again, brother. We'll have many more of these.
Thanks for the invite, bro. We'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. If you got some value, make sure you share this and like and subscribe to the channel. And appreciate you guys being here.